Good afternoon and welcome to the October 24th, 2017 meeting of the Architectural Review Board. The Architectural Review Board is a 9-member board appointed by the City Council and serve on a voluntary basis without compensation. Our procedure for conducting business is the petitioner for each item will be asked to come forward, state your name for the record, and present his or her request. The board will ask any questions that they may have. Then anyone wishing to speak to the proposal will be asked to come forward and voice their opinions. Each side will have 10 minutes to speak. Once your request is heard and the board's decision is rendered, you may leave the meeting. However, if you have questions for the staff, please wait until after the meeting is over to ask them, or you may contact the staff at the office on the following day. Once public testimony and discussion for a particular item has concluded, the members of the board will deliberate and will render its decision. Members with a personal or financial interest in any request are required to recuse themselves from voting. All decisions by the Architectural Review Board are final. Any aggrieved party may appeal a decision of the board to the City Council within 15 days. Petitioners may also appeal the board's decision to the Circuit Court within 30 days of the meeting. We have six members present. It takes 5 votes to pass a motion. Because of the number of board members present, if you would like to delay your request, please let us know at the time your request is announced. At this time, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce the members that are present of the Architectural Review Board. Cedric Campbell, Elizabeth Brown, Katie Williams, John Foshee, John Hayden, and Walter Bush Jr. Planning Control staff is Christy Anderson, Paula Richardson, Russell Stringer, Robert Smith, and sitting in Ms. Helen Milligan. We do have a quorum, and at this time, I'd like to see if everybody's had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting. Do you have any corrections or additions or deletions? If not, the minutes will stand approved. Okay. Our first presenter for this evening, Brian Swearinger. Requests for approval of a picket fence for the property located at 3236 LeBron Road, Cloverdale, Idlewild. You may come and present your petition. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Swearinger.
Okay, Swearinger.
Yeah. Good evening, members. Brian Swearinger, and tonight I'm proposing a white picket fence. On the pictures there, you can see to my right, on the right side of the pictures, I would like to install a 44-inch high, about 3.5-inch wide white picket fence with dog ears, take down the privacy fence behind that, and just reuse the wood, paint it a true white for that. The other part is to, as you can see in this picture in the back left of the property, to install a gate all the way in the back, also white picket, using the same wood and the same colors.
Okay. All right, thank you. Do we have any comments from the board? Okay. Do we have any comments from the floor?
Hi, I'm Connie Colvin and represent Cloverdale, Idlewild. We think it's great, but we would really prefer it back just a little bit, like attached to the house and not the porch, so it doesn't go just straight across. So it gives some definition.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's the height of the, like the foundation of the porch? wall, you know, where your porch floor is versus like the level of the ground? Do you know what that height is?
Yep, 44 inches.
Oh, is
So
that
right
what the
around there. So
44
that
inches
would,
comes-
yeah, so my purpose for that, like from the porch, would be to align to the neighbor's fence for that. And then to have the gaps, to have the sight line going back, and then also that visual sight line from the bottom trim of the porch that you could see in one of the previous pictures. So it's just a continual line there.
Okay, and there's a fence between you and your neighbor?
Yes.
And how far back, does it go to that point, or does it go farther back, or?
It aligns with the front corner of his house. And then I would just connect that from my porch over to his. However, mine would be, his is a privacy fence, about as tall as I am. Mine would be much lower.
Okay.
Any further comments from the board?
I'm confused then, because it looks like to me, maybe I'm looking at the wrong neighbor. You're talking about a neighbor to the non-porch side?
The neighbor on the porch side.
Okay.
So if you were to go back one picture, let's see, and to the front of my house, this is a house down the street, so that would be a style of the fence. But if you go back some more to the front picture of my house, there it is. In the bottom picture, in the bottom right, you can see my neighbor's house. Behind that bush is their privacy fence.
Is it a new fence? Is their fence fairly new?
It's fairly new.
It looks
The
fairly new.
wood is, yeah, the wood's new. I don't know when their fence was installed.
But it's to the corner of their house, not to the front of their porch. I mean, just normally fences would align with the front of your house and not with the edge of the porch, as our neighborhood representative said. I know you're making it connect up with their fence, but you really can't even see their fence. It's just a corner of it.
Yeah, and he's considering removing that bush for that. So it's one of the reasons to align it. And then if you look at pictures, when I was digging through the history of my house in the 1980s, the front porch was actually enclosed. And so it was part of the house. So it matches up with the neighbors. I figure keep the sight lines the same.
The front of your house, does it line up with the front of his house? It looks like your house is farther back.
Almost the same.
Almost the same.
Yeah. So he has the bushes in front. I have some small flowers. Haven't grown in yet.
So looking at the picture, it looks like your existing fence is behind the AC units, and now you want to come in front of the AC units all the way to the front of the house with the fence?
Yes.
Is that correct? And what Ms. Colvin is asking for is to remain back behind the AC units, if I'm understanding
She's
it right?
asking it to come up to the front corner of the house.
And not the
rather than
porch?
the front corner of the porch.
Okay, but still, so the AC units would still be behind the fence? Okay.
Yes. Any further comments from the board? Did you want to speak on behalf?
Just to clarify, it was hard for me to...
Excuse me, could you?
It was hard for me to hear.
Yeah. Could you announce your name?
Yes.
Okay.
I am Jane Burris, and I'm also with the Cloverdale Idlewild Association. I drove by and looked, and what you're saying is that the fence, your fence would run into the, you would just be at the same plane as the house next door to you. Your,
For the front, yes.
right. Okay. And their fence, when you draw that line, comes to the front of your porch.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't get out and walk the property, but from the street, I thought it looked like their fence line ran with the back of your porch where it meets the front of your house. But I am incorrect, is what you're saying.
Yes.
I understand wanting it to be in the same plane. That does make sense. And as long as it's in that same plane, the neighborhood will be okay with that. We would prefer that it be in line with the back of the house, but if it's one continuum line, is what you're saying. Then
So, Brian, I'm sorry, Brian, the front of your porch is in line with the corner of your neighbor's house, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No, I don't think so, though.
Those fence posts do show on that survey where he's got the lines drawn that's in your packet.
Yeah.
the neighbors' fence posts also show? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Swearinger, do you have any major objection to sliding the fence back to the back of the porch instead of the front of the porch?
I think the aesthetic would be very different, and then also the huckleberry tree that you see there in the front would be in the way of that. So I'd be working into the roots of that tree. Also, I've found on the property, there used to be an old chain link fence that's completely gone. However, there's multiple stones underneath that old footing that I'd have to go through and remove as well.
In the vicinity of placing the fence at the
Yes.
backside of the porch?
So it would be quite difficult to work around the tree. In fact, the tree encompasses the footings of that old fence. It grew around it.
Mr. Chair, may I make a motion?
Sure.
I move that we approve the submittal as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion that's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any unreadiness? Any unreadiness? Any unreadiness? All in favor of the motion? All opposed? Okay. Your
Motion
project has been
carries.
approved.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next presenter, Jane Albright, request for approval of a driveway gate for the property located at 965 Cloverdale Road, Old Cloverdale. May I present your project?
I hope I heard all your instructions. I'm Jane Albright. I live at 965 Cloverdale Road, and I am proposing to add an electronic wrought iron gate at the rear corner of my home and my driveway, just to prevent unauthorized access, which has happened several times lately. Very simple, nothing frilly.
Looks like a good idea.
Thank you. Any questions?
Okay, do we have any questions from the board? Any comments? Do we have any comments from the floor? Any comments from the floor? Chair, entertain a motion.
Move to approve as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion that's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any unreadiness? Any unreadiness? Any unreadiness? All in favor of the motion? All opposed? Project has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Our next presenter, Paulandhannah Wannstedt, request for approval of the demolition of the outbuilding for the property located at 1466 Watson Avenue, Old Cloverdale. You may present your project.
Hey, Paul Wannstedt, owner of 1466 Watson Avenue, was here last month to ask about a fence, came back to ask about the outbuilding, the shed, which is, we've gotten a couple opinions on it and is pretty much close to falling down. We want to see if we can go ahead and take it down and then finish off the privacy fence that was approved last month.
We have any comments from the floor, from the board? Any comments from the board? Any comments from the floor?
Darby Forrester, representing the Old Cloverdale Association, and I guess also representing myself as I lived next to them for many years. I bought my house in 1990, and that shed was on its last leg then, so it needs to come down.
All right. Any further comments from the floor? Chair, entertain a motion.
Move to approve as submitted.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion that's been moved and properly second. There any unreadness? Any unreadness? Any unreadness? All in favor of the motion? All opposed? The motion is,
All right, thank you.
it's been passed. Our next presenter, Bill Wilson, request for approval of partial roof replacement for the property located at 670 Cloverdale Road, Old Cloverdale. You may present your case.
Hey, we've been looking at trying to replace our roof, and we've been trying to locate what is a difficult tile to locate. It's a concrete roof, it's a hawthorn tile, and we've sourced through various locations, and essentially all the backlog of the tile is gone, and we can't find any. So what we'd like to do is to be able to consolidate what we have, remove the roof, because our underlayment's gone bad, so we want to repair the roof. We want to come back and place what we have on the street frontage, so that way that the house doesn't lose its character, which this tile brings a lot of character to the house. So then we want to come back, and on the back side, just on that piece that we can't replace, whatever breaks or what's consolidated, and come back with a standing seam on the back. And we already have, there are parts of the house that already has standing seam on it, or a metal roof on it, so.
My guess is that this is a weird size. I'm just looking at it, my guess is that this is an odd size.
It's a very unique tile. It's the profile itself.
I see.
It's just very unique, and
Yeah.
it's not something that is readily available at all. So.
No. I mean, the metal is just such a difference in scale. You know, you've got something that breaks up into a lot of little bitty pieces, and now you're putting back on something that's great big pieces. And that is a problem. Although I think, of course, putting the right stuff on the front is exactly the way to
absolutely.
go.
It's just, again, it's just to keep the context of the house, because it's that or replace the tile roof completely with either a Spanish tile or something that really breaks away from what we have. And using that pattern on the back is just, I don't want to put screws into my metal roof, so I'd rather do a standing seam or a V-crimp where I can hide the fasteners.
Mr. Wilson, the portion of the roof in the back that's standing seam right now, how long has that been in place? Is that?
It came with the house, so I can't readily say. But there are portions where we have a screen porch that is covered with it. There's another portion where they had clearly fixed some of the roof tile, and they just kind of worked their way up with it. I mean, it's been there for a bit now. Yeah. And I'll say this: the rear of our home is not visible from any street, essentially.
But would your neighbors see it?
Not really. There may be one portion, and that's too why if you look at that sketch, why there's certain pieces so much so over on this lower portion, there's a part where I could see from one of our bedrooms, and so I'd like to keep that tile as well. So I'm doing the best I can to.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with your methodology. I just have a problem with replacing the parts with metal because it doesn't seem to go with the style of your structure. Do you feel that way, Leslie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you looked at I mean, what kind of metal stamped roof can you get so that you'd have have you looked at that?
Finding a pattern that would better match. I mean, I'd be willing to look for a different pattern that matched, but as of right now, this is what I found.
Have you talked to Mr. Emack in Birmingham?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Christie's first suggestion, and we looked at another place in Illinois, I believe it.
Yeah.
So, fresh out.
Are you thinking stamped shingle, a metal shingle?
Well, you can get stamped shingles. You can also get some panels, you know, like the V-crimp, but it's stamped in but most of them are too Victorian looking. I don't know what the only thing it would offer is that it would be a better scale piece with the front rather than a proper style.
Right. I would rather avoid a shingle, and I'd rather go with a panel, personally.
You don't want to use like a asphalt shingle that's red, or?
No. If I'm gonna.
You're looking for a quality roof product
Yes,
rather
ma'am.
than just
Yes. Yeah. I want to deal with this once.
Well, we have certainly approved before people taking off their slate roofs and throwing them in the trash bin and putting on 3-tab shingles. So this at least preserves the historic material in large. It's just not my favorite thing.
I know. If it were up to me, I'd put the hawthorn back all over it, but I can't.
Well, it certainly appears from the street anyway, anyone driving by is going to look original.
Right. And that's
And
entirely
you've
my
done the
intent.
best with what you got, and you just, as they say, you can't find no more of it, so, okay.
The V-crimp metal roof, you're talking about the residential metal roof, you're not talking about the commercial red roofs that you see on like Google Car
No,
Wash?
and then it'll be a burnished, it's the burnished slate, I think.
Burnished slate.
Yeah.
So it's going to look like this piece of roof we're seeing in a photograph.
That's
more or
correct.
less.
Yes.
So it's got a good pan size,
Absolutely.
an unobtrusive color. Any of those residential scaled terracotta or concrete products are really hard to find. All you can get now are pieces that are much bigger.
Yeah.
We have further comments from the board. Any further comment? Any comments from the floor?
Dorby Forster, representing the Old Cloverdale Association. We don't really like it. I mean, half metal, half concrete. I know you said you couldn't get the tiles that are on there. Are there different kind of concrete tiles that you could do to put on the back? So, I mean, so at least it's a...
The pattern would be, I mean, it would seriously break from this is kind of an orthogonal tile, whereas I'd have to go with a Spanish concrete tile. For most, just about anything I can find new is going to be kind of the scalped, you know, just your classic Spanish tile. And I think it would change the character of the house. I mean, it's not be a bad character, but it would be a completely different
Well, I
character.
mean, the metal's going to change the character of the house.
You won't be able to
It's
see
going to be hard to make the ridge pieces and everything fit properly then.
As far from what we can, when we talked about this at our meeting, the metal that is already on the back of the house was not approved by the ARB or was put on there prior to historic designation. So. Does the terracotta stuff come in white like yours is?
They come in colors, but
It's gonna look
to me, it's the...
Yeah. I mean, this is not going to look good either, but at least it's a contemporary, it doesn't make any pretense at being historic. It's new.
It doesn't try to match.
It doesn't try to match in a wrong way.
You see the ridges? It's got this ridging pattern to it.
Is it white?
No, ma'am. It was originally a
blue shoe and a white shoe.
terracotta color, but because it's concrete, that original layer has just gone, and so now it's a brown.
It's a brown.
Yeah, and again, you can see how it's very, very orthogonal. Whereas anything I can get now is the brown.
He wants another thing.
And it just, it wouldn't be the same. And I'm fortunate, again, if I could, I'd go all the way back to that.
I know. I understand that. And I mean, I don't know enough to say if the scalloped tile would look better, so it's all at least some sort of tile versus metal.
Well, and again, from this shot, you wouldn't see any metal.
Right, I know, but you will see it on the back.
Yeah, they have their own discussion. Did you get it?
Huh?
Did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it?
Did we get what?
Did you get it?
A solution?
Solution, no, no. No, we were talking about, I was saying if you put another kind of tile on it, he was talking about the only kind he can get is like the terracotta, so it's more of the rounded tile. And I was like, well, is it better to have two different types of tile on there versus tile and metal?
But I think
He doesn't think it would look.
Yeah, I think that's the same thing that we're basically discussing up here as well.
Mr. Wilson, is there any portion of your house that's been added onto? It looks like the back portion may have been added.
There was at some point a laundry room added at the back.
Just one small room, not that
Just a small room. That whole portion, all that has been, as far as I'm aware, contiguous to the house.
Okay.
But there is some ornamentation to the top on the house on the ridge line that goes with this tile, and that's, to me, especially once you get up to it, that's part of the character of it. You can't see it too well in the photo, but it sits on either of the points, and it just adorns the house well. I don't know that switching to a different tile would allow me to put those back, and so all of a sudden, even that character's gone. So.
What I want to do, Ms. Brown, Elizabeth, you want to make a suggestion to, and before we do a vote?
Right. I would say that I still would prefer if we could find something that more closely represented the scale of the roof that's up there rather than going to the metal roof. And I would suggest that maybe you look at some of those faux slates.
Okay.
Because you can get them in color, you can get them in a dirty red color.
Right.
That's sort of like this too, that would, it would be more like the scale of the piece that you've got there, without being directly, without it being this, which I agree is a worse situation than what you've suggested. That's just wrong. It's going to look like I ran out of material before I was making the quilt, and so I just put these pieces that I had, and they don't really fit.
Mike, could I get you to change one more slide over? Or, yeah, there. You can see on that image that, yeah, I understand what you're saying is that we've got that panel there that doesn't quite have that same rhythm. And I mean, I can try and source something or find and see if there's something that will do that. I wouldn't have a problem doing that, but I don't know that it exists.
There have been a couple of sort of rubber slate roofs put on Thomas Avenue houses in the last, 8 or 10 years anyway, 5 or 10 years, that might be a good match. It might not be a good scale match at all, and I'm just making things up while you've actually gone and hunted for things. And my other suggestion would be a good architectural composition shingle. But the slates are going to look more like the roof that you've got up there than the 3-tab shingles would. But of course, be more expensive too. But the metal roof is not going to be cheap.
No, it's not. And again, I don't want to have to deal with this too much. So I'd like to get a quality roof and put it on and deal with it now.
Yeah, right.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion from the board? Chair entertain a motion. Put your hand in.
I'd like to table this until the next week and see if the owner can come up with a better match.
Okay. I'll do my best.
All right.
We really commend you for wanting to keep the front of your house looking like it does. It's a beautiful house, and
It is beautiful.
And really appreciate your efforts on that.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion that's been moved and properly second. Is there any unreadness on it? Any unreadness? Any unreadness? All in favor? All opposed? Okay.
Thanks for all your efforts, Mr. Wilson. We do
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. Thank you. Nice discussion. Our next presenter is John T. Campo and Associates. Request for approval of signage and exterior alterations for the property located at 152 Coosa Street, Lower Commerce. You may present your project.
Good evening. My name is Connor Gibson, and this is Isabel Kaczynski with Campo Architects. We're representing the owner, John Tampa, with Ascent Hospitality. The Schloss and Kahn building, located at 152 Coosa Street, just a couple of blocks away, is a 4-story Renaissance Revival-style warehouse building constructed in 1907. It occupies an irregularly shaped triangular site at the southeast corner of Coosa and West Jefferson Street. The building's primary entrance is located at the apex of the triangle. The building's red brick facades along both with Coosa and West Jefferson Streets are heavily ornamented. On these elevations, the ground floor is comprised of a stone base with rusticated banded brick above. Round arched openings set within each bay are accented by voussoirs that integrate with the horizontal banding. On these primary elevations, the ground floor window openings have been infilled and wider openings intended for loading have been retrofitted with overhead doors. Steel windows on the upper floors are in fair condition. In general, the building's exterior is in very good condition, with the majority of the historic brick masonry and ornament intact. Do you have any questions for the proposed work?
Has the National Park Service finished reviewing this project yet?
We are currently in part 2.
Okay.
They have approved with conditions.
Okay.
Any comments from the board?
Does the other people, like Historic Commission or any of that, have any input on signage?
What was the question?
You're requesting about the sign. Does the Historic Commission or the Parks and Recreation or whoever is involved, National Park Service, have any signage requirements?
Yes, in the part 2, one of our conditions is to submit signage package to them before it is installed. But they have not approved the package yet.
Is this sign to be lighted?
No.
It's usually the brand's, it's usually the brand does backlight the sign in their package, but we can have it proposed to not be backlit and to just be the sign and not lit at night or light it from above.
So is the square footage of the signage 180 feet, or is 180 square feet the existing sign?
The existing sign is 180 square feet.
What's the size of the proposed sign, the square footage?
It's about 77 square feet for the blade sign.
77?
Yeah, the lettering over the canopy is smaller than the 20 square feet. So they had a canopy sign over the entrance, and then the blade sign. And the blade sign was the 77 square feet. It would be about the same size as the Hampton Inn sign.
As the what?
Hampton Inn.
Okay.
But the signage over the canopy is less than the 20?
Yes.
It's 15 square feet at the canopy.
Maybe I'm missing it, but I found the canopy sign, but other than looking at the end view of the blade sign, I don't see it. Am I missing it?
As in section?
No, I guess
It
on
should
the building.
be in the agenda packet itself because it was smaller and not in the oversized separate plans.
I agree with you. All I see is the end face.
The end elevation.
Like you should see it like hanging off
Yeah,
here.
yeah, we don't see it on the building, on the building.
Do you have a picture of what the sign looks like hanging off the building from the Tallapoosa side? It's that line.
Yeah.
What-
Yeah, you want to see the,
Oh,
it
okay.
needs to be on the, we need to be looking at it on the narrow elevation, right there. Isn't that where it's going to be? Or is it right here? It's on one or the other.
What is the sign made out of? What materials?
Aluminum channel letters, it says.
It's matte black aluminum channel letters.
So I assume the Bishop Parker signs that are up there now are going to be removed?
Yes,
Okay.
to expose the original Schloss and Kahn
Okay.
lettering should be on the apex of the building.
Okay.
So it's 22 inches by 42?
22
feet. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. I was just gonna say, yeah. Okay, 22 feet.
Mike, can you rotate that view? You can't?
It's removed there.
Okay, the image on at the top of the page shows the Blake sign on the side of the building. What's the existing picture depicting? Is anything specific?
What's there right
Yeah,
now?
the south, the picture on the south. Is there anything specific you're showing there?
No, just the before.
And then the after just shows the dark line on the side of the building where the sign will go, right?
And then where you see between the second and third floor is where the Bishop Parker signage now
No.
is and being proposed.
The application here said
Well, without, is there a picture of the sign on the building so that we could see the sign hanging on the building?
There's not. It would just be a 3.5
Having
foot
thought that the
extension.
mellow mushroom sign was a good proportion, even though not a historical proportion, and now seeing the mellow mushroom sign practically blinding me across the street, I'm reluctant, without an elevation of it, to vote on it. It's a pretty important building. From a design point of view, a really important building. I don't have any problem with the more or less modern design of it. I think that's appropriate, but I want to see what it looks like on the building.
It's also a fairly visible corner it's at, too.
Very, yes.
So the sign itself is 3'6" wide, right? Is it attached directly to the building, or is there any space between the sign and the building? Will the sign only stick out 3'6" from the building?
Yes, it would stick out 3'6", and it would, where we would propose that it would be attached.
Attached to the building?
Attached to the
So it won't
building.
stick out any further than
So
that?
it's not on a
brackets.
bracket or anything that would hold it out from the building?
We don't have the proposal for that right now,
Okay.
but
It would be
considering your
simple.
comments, we could take that into consideration.
See, because we have a picture of the sign, and we have a picture of the building, but they need to be married together for
Right.
us to really approve it properly. Would that be correct?
That would be my preference.
Yeah.
Could it possibly be tabled to the next month so that could be done?
Christie?
You can separate pieces and parts. Construction hasn't started on this building yet, and I'm assuming that the sign's going to be one of the last things they need to do. But some of the other, the changes on the elevations are going to be more critical to getting that project started. So they came in from New Orleans, So they may not want to come back here next month. I mean, maybe further down the road, but I'd hate to hold up the whole project over the sign when the sign's going to be the last piece of the puzzle.
I don't want to make that kind of mistake.
What do we need to, other than the signage, what is there for us to vote on? I mean, they're cleaning, that doesn't need our permission to clean or to repair.
Well, but they are altering some of the closed-in openings and the loading bays, and, I mean, they've got some framing and glazing details that they're going to do. I mean, the Park Service is going to scrutinize this more closely than y'all would. But they still have to get your blessing to be able to pull a permit to do any of this work. And I would suggest if there is any piece of this that you would be willing to approve, that you consider a part of the motion being that if the National Park Service requires any alterations to what was presented this evening to bring it into compliance with the Secretary of Interior standards, that you just make those allowances part of the motion so they don't have to keep coming back to you because they've got to change the color of the glazing in the loading bay door or whatever.
Well, do you want to look at the canopy piece that's over the doors?
I guess it'd be the canopy and the
And
windows.
break that out from the blade piece, first of all?
Yes, that and the infills. In like 1970, they had infilled all the first floor with, I guess, like a stucco type finish. And so we were proposing to open up all the ground floor openings, minus a handful of the square ones, for exit egress, for a main entrance, and for window openings. The glazing would be inset quite a bit to expose, so that there's depth there for the masonry. And so that's the next big piece for this facade change.
Are you basing the windows to be replaced, restored on a historic photograph or something?
Yes.
Yes, there's a photo from early 1970s from before the windows were covered, and they would match in kind to those.
Are the windows still back there?
No. They took them out and infilled them.
And the Park Service is going to want to see these freight door openings, you know, like as really recessed and butt glazed.
Correct.
Tell me about your cleaning methods. Do you know? Has the Park Service reviewed that?
Yes, they have. We are using just the gentlest means possible for cleaning, mostly preserving and restoring if need be for smaller items, especially on the cornice or the stonework.
So I'm not going to drive by and see a man with a
Pressure washer?
no, not the pressure washer. It's the sandblasting machine.
No sandblasting. Gentlest means possible.
Okay.
Do we have any comments from the floor? Any comments from the floor? Okay. Chair, entertain a motion.
One question, last question for me,
Okay.
Chairman. The ramp, the new ramp that's going to be installed, where exactly would that one be placed?
It is in the alley, and
Mike, can you flip back? Now, can you flip back to the picture that would show where the
it's
ramp's
not that image.
Is it in the package?
Yeah. It's in one of those views, right?
That's existing. So let's see.
Are those construction drawings you have?
It's in the bottom right photo, so where the fire escape is being removed as well. And the bottom right.
The bottom right?
Yes.
So the ramp is...
And so as you can't see because of the cars, we have another elevation in this packet, but there is a loading dock there now, but, and it is flush with the property line, and we propose to keep with that line, but extend a ramp out and guardrail for exit egress. Thank you.
We should have brought our packets.
There you go. I brought mine. It's not like yeah, I brought my packets. There it is. Okay.
Thank you.
And again, the loading dock is, there's a current loading dock there with, at the,
Yes.
the current metal door there you see in the photo.
So do you
Now,
have any?
do you have any more drawings that actually shows what we're looking at? Yeah, that's fine.
Mike, are there two other files in that box? Because the oversized drawings for this should be in there, and there are some drawings for the next item as well.
Yeah, we had this for Coosa Street. We had the elevation for Coosa Street.
Okay.
I don't know what they're called. I didn't put them in there. Bishop Parker. Yes, please.
Yeah, mine's in the car, so.
And Christy, now I see some of the additional ones in the packet that you had up here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that helps.
That's what he's pulling up too. We had to do them separately.
Yeah.
Go ahead and flip forward to, they've got some illustrated photos.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
And there's the ramp. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the loading dock is at the same elevation as the existing loading dock, just the continuation of a ramp for
Looks fine.
Yeah, it looks fine.
ADA egress.
Okay. All right. Chair, entertain a motion.
So, my personal opinion, I have no problems with anything y'all are proposing. National Park Service is certainly going to scrutinize this much more than we ever dreamed of. I would love to see the signage when y'all get ready to present actual signage. Don't know exactly what the blade sign looks like, don't know the bracketry, don't know the lighting, and the channel letters that y'all called out are actually for the other sign, I think. I don't think they're for the blade sign. So my motion would be to approve everything except the two signs as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion that's been moved and properly second. There any unreadiness on there? Any unreadiness? Any unreadiness? All in favor of that motion? Okay, the motion has been approved, subject to what is.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next presenter, 5 Points Cultural Commission, request for approval of parking lot screening, courtyard and exterior opportunities for the property located at 15 to 21 North Goldwaite and 41 through 55 North Goldwaite, Cottage Hill. You may present your project.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. I'm Stephen Speaks with Chase Fisher. Chase has been down here before on these two buildings located on Goldwaite Street. We're at the corner of Martha and Goldwaite. I'm here to talk more about site-related and screening. The two buildings are obviously going to stay as is. I'm going to let him talk about the buildings in a second, but the proposal is to access the rear of these buildings with parking. It'll come off Martha Street. There's an existing brick driveway turnout there now, it would be improved to concrete for two-way traffic. It will come off Martha at the same location, and there'll be some a gravel parking lot installed behind both buildings. As part of that development, there'll be some handicap spaces behind the building closest to Martha Street. A couple of handicap places will be installed for access onto the existing sidewalk on Martha so people can access the buildings along the sidewalk.
Can you move the microphone a little closer
Sure.
to you?
A little bit closer.
That's
There you
good.
go. Is that better?
Uh-huh.
Okay. There'll be some handicaps. There will be a concrete pad poured behind the building at Martha and gold weight for handicap parking. That handicap access will come out onto the existing sidewalk of Martha Street for access around the corner to the buildings. And as I said before, there'll be a gravel parking lot in the rear. We're showing a needlepoint holly landscape strip between the existing sidewalk and the gravel parking lot on Martha Street side. There's a courtyard area proposed between the two buildings, and we're going to screen off the parking lot behind that courtyard area with needlepoint hollies also. And then there will also be trees planted around the perimeter of the site as part of the landscaping. There will be a dumpster pad proposed on the south side of the property. That'll be screened off by a wood privacy fence around the perimeter for that dumpster pad. Those are the high points site related. Now I can talk about drainage and water and sewer if you want to talk about all that. I didn't think you did. I saw that nod. But
What about the trees that need to be removed in the parking area?
There's 3 pecan trees back here on the backside, John, that we're proposing to remove. They're kind of scraggly looking. I think those show up in those photos. We're going to remove those in this backside, and we're going to come back around and plant new trees around the perimeter.
Yeah, one of those pecan trees looks like it's been hacked up pretty.
Yeah.
Got one branch sticking out, and the rest looks like it's.
Yeah, the last big storm we had with the straight line winds knocked out a big chunk of that one, unfortunately. Yeah, so basics on this of kind of big picture. You all have previously approved the facade design for this, and this is kind of beginning phase 2 of the project. So storefront windows and doors will be going in the next couple of weeks. We're a nonprofit development group doing commercial development in transitional neighborhoods, which has proven to be quite time intensive and a challenge, especially when you have no full-time people who are working on it. So this particular part, as Stephen discussed, is just for the parking and really working to maximize parking as much as we can. We're going well above the minimums to really provide as much parking as we can for the commercial developments in the neighborhood. So we can kind of pull as much of that off the streets of the neighborhood as possible. So on the buildings thus far, we were able to clean off the old black paint that covered up the original yellow brick on the building, and that panned out well, and get in some matching brick that turned out pretty well. So that's pretty much it.
Mike, would you pull up the 5 points document?
Russell, do you have any comments on?
No, I'm in favor of removing the pecan trees and putting in something much better.
Thank you.
You can go through. There's the proposed parking, and the next one I think shows the landscaping.
There you go. That's it. That's the landscape plan I'm holding up now.
Thank you. Does anyone on the floor have a comment on this project? Any comment on the floor? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the applicant as submitted.
I second.
We have a motion that's been moved and properly second. Any unreadness? Any unreadness? Any unreadness? All in favor of the motion? All opposed? The motion has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, and I think last presenter, Jeffrey and Elizabeth Tidrick. Is that correct?
Good evening. My wife and I own the house at 3154 DuPont Road, which is right where DuPont meets Cloverdale Road when it goes past the Cloverdale Bottom Park. It's a Spanish Revival 1922 house. There was a major arson fire set in that house last February 6th. Started about midnight. It was a 2-alarm fire. It took approximately 2.5 hours to get under control. The exterior of the house looks remarkably good compared to the interior, and it took about 3 months to resolve the insurance status of the house. We had a policy that covered the original purchase price and a $50,000 renovation loan when we bought the house in 2005. We burned through that construction loan in about 3 years. We bought it for my son. We began continuing the renovation in approximately 2010 through 2017 and spent about the same amount again renovating that apartment that you're seeing in the bottom picture in a storage workshop building behind the house and then finishing the house. We've had a number of people look at the house, both investors, contractors, as well as the insurance people and the service master restoration people. And you can't really see the damage. Clearly the whole house is affected by smoke and fire damage. All the ceilings are down in all the rooms. And approximately 1/3 of the house has the old 2x12 roof joists under the flat roof are alligator. They're about half the size that they originally were. Same for the floor joists underneath the floors. And so the insurance company determined that it was not reasonably repairable and declared it a total loss. And so we're asking for permission tonight to demolish that main house to get within a time limit that we've got to have the insurance company reimburse us for the demolition. My wife and I do understand that if we rebuild on that site, we will need your approval for any plans to do that.
Board, you have any questions, comments?
When was the date of the original fire?
I'm sorry?
When was the date of the original fire?
It was 6 February 2017.
And I have toured the house. The petitioner gave permission for members of the Cloverdale Ottawa Association to go through it. What isn't burned is smoke damage. All the interior smoke damaged, of course. Water damage. You've all been on the inside of houses. Joists are burned through. I think you could tear it down to the walls and probably would still not have anything left. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, no, and that, I mean, I love that house because it was a really beautiful house, we were literally about 2 weeks away from completing it, and we had already made plans to list it as a rental before I retired. Our plan was to move into it after I retire in about 1.5 years because it had the apartment that would cover part of the mortgage that we still had in the house.
And there were 1 or 2 other Spanish revivals in the neighborhood. But
yeah,
again,
it's 3150 Cloverdale's right next door. That's a beautiful home.
So it is unique, an unusual house. It's a bad loss for the for the city and especially the neighborhood.
Any further comments from the board? Any comments from the floor?
I'm Jane Burris, and I am president of the Cloverdale Idlewild Association. The teachers were kind enough, at Christy's suggestion, to give us a call and invite all of the board members and the immediate neighbors to tour the house. And then it was included on our published agenda and discussed at our last meeting. And both the board and every member present that evening, it was unanimous that there really is no option. We hate it, but it's clear the ceiling beams are charred, and since it's a flat roof, that's a really big problem. And then the floors in two of the rooms, at least, and really a little bit further than that, are just, you couldn't walk in them because the floors were so badly burned. We support.
Thank you.
We're not opposed.
Any further comment from the board?
Yes. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Approve the demolition as requested, and the petitioner would bring back before ARB any planned new construction.
Second.
Motion has been moved and properly seconded. There any unreadness? Any unreadness? Any unreadness? All in favor of that motion? All opposed? That motion has been granted.
Thank you.
Approved. Thank you. Well, since that's the last one, any comments?
Somebody snuck something in underneath?
Okay. All right, meeting is adjourned.